Good afternoon, everybody. It's 2 p.m. and we are getting ready to start our webinar for today. So as our participants are logging in, I just want to go through a few housekeeping items. But first and foremost, we're really glad you're here with us today. And we're excited to be, or I'm excited to be talking about how, yes, your nonprofit can use LinkedIn. This is a question that we do get often, and hopefully we can answer some of your questions today and get you moving and using LinkedIn effectively for your nonprofit. My name is Amy Wong. I'm your presenter today. I'm also the president of .org Solutions. We are a marketing, fundraising, and strategic planning firm that specializes in working with nonprofits. And we put on this content as part of our .org Solutions Cafe learning opportunities. And these are just free opportunities for you as nonprofit to take advantage of the things that we learn along the way and things that we feel might be important for you to know. So again, we're glad you are with us today. If you could just do me a quick favor, if you could wave your hand in the chat or just send us a quick little note to make sure that you can both hear and see the slides and the content. We want to make sure that we don't get far down the path here and nobody can hear or see. So great. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. So we're going to go ahead and get started. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about our coffee shop format. And so for the purposes of this call, if you have not been one of our webinar attendees before, only the panelists, which will be me, will be visible on today's call. All of you as participants are muted. But that doesn't mean you can't ask questions. So I want to make sure that if you have questions along the way, please put those in both our, the chat appears to be disabled. I apologize for that. It looks like some people are able to get into the chat. So go ahead and use the Q&A. I'm sorry about that. I'm not exactly sure why that is. So I'm glad you guys can see and hear. And if you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A. So as I was saying, I want you to ask questions throughout the session because I think it's really important to ask a question when you have one. And we'll also leave about 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the session just to answer any questions that may have cropped up. And always we encourage you, if there's questions that come up after the fact, to certainly email us and we'll do our best to get answers for those to you. So a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today. So really the reason for this is we get a lot of questions from nonprofits about using LinkedIn. And a lot of nonprofits shy away from using LinkedIn because you may think it's not a great way to reach your audiences. Maybe you don't really understand LinkedIn. People maybe think of LinkedIn as just a job site, or if they think of it in terms of advertising, they may think of, they've heard that it's very expensive, and so they tend to shy away from it. But there are a ton of things you can really do with LinkedIn, including recruiting talent. But there's a great way to be able to reach donors and do a lot of other things to be able to engage with your audiences. So we're going to talk today about what a lot of those tools are and what you can do. And actually also how to talk to the audiences that are on LinkedIn, because it is a little bit different of a platform. So, but before we get started, I want to know a little bit about you as an audience. And so the first thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to do a poll today. And so our first poll question is going to be, I'm going to launch our first poll question. So I want to know, how often are you on LinkedIn for your personal use? So just kind of interested in that. So please take a moment to answer that. Great. When you're done with that first question, if you could just answer that second question too. It looks like a lot of people have already answered that. So, all right. So it looks though on our webinar poll that many of you are semi-regular users of LinkedIn, that you might be on, 3 to 5 days a week. So you're kind of stopping in, checking things out. Some of you may only be on there 1 day a week, and some just aren't on there regularly at all. And it looks like a lot of you do have an organizational page and you post content on a regular basis. So that's good. But today we're going to talk a little bit about why you need to look at a lot of the content that you are posting and make sure it's the right type of content. So thank you all for answering that. I'm going to share the results here too, so that you can kind of take a look at those. Like I said, about 22% of you are on regularly, 33% are 1 day a week. More than almost half of you are not on regularly at all. But you do have company pages, some of you and some of you don't. All right, so we're going to move on to really what I think is important about LinkedIn, because it looks like about some of you are not on regularly and some of you are. So it's really important to talk about who is on LinkedIn. And, when we talk about marketing and fundraising, some of the most important things that we think are really understanding like who your audiences are and where those audiences are. And I think you'll find as if you're a fundraiser, executive director, whatever your marketer, whatever your role may be, I think you're going to find that a lot of the people that you're trying to reach are actively on LinkedIn. So when we look at the ages of LinkedIn users, this is really telling. About a little bit over 50% of all users on LinkedIn are over the age of 40. So that essentially means that you have a lot of people that might be really great potential individuals who could be involved with you, whether it's as board members or volunteers, or maybe even contacts into organizations you want to be involved with. And also the potential for employees is there as well. But also you see that you still have a lot of the younger generation who is on here. So if you're looking to connect with, millennials and Gen Z who are, the up and coming donors and the up and coming individuals who are involved, they're also very active on LinkedIn as well, representing close to 50%. So, the people that you want to reach are essentially here. You also want to take a look at the income of LinkedIn users. And I think this is a really interesting statistic because you have about 45% of your LinkedIn users have an income of $75,000 a year or more. And so when you're looking again at people who might be good potential board members or good potential donors to your organization, that's a really good statistic because you're looking for people who do have that wealth. And we're going to talk a little bit more. I have a couple of other statistics here coming up that'll show that that wealth might be even more than you expect. So you even then, if you add in people who make between $50,000 a year and $74,999 a year, that makes up another 24%. So, on average, this is individual, not household. These are individual salaries are, about 70% of your population is actually making over $50,000 a year as an individual. So there, again, is a good demographic maybe for those who are looking to build their donor bases or their volunteers. This is also a group that's educated. So more than 50% have a college degree or more. Some, even a lower percentage have some college or high school or less. So, again, these people are educated and again, folks who could contribute in a lot of ways to your organization. A couple other things about these LinkedIn users, it tends to be a more male dominated platform, whereas you think of maybe, Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest tend to skew more toward females. But still, there's a pretty good percentage of females who are on LinkedIn. So this is, there's a nice diversification of gender on LinkedIn as well. And I think that those statistics also could be skewed by people who may consider them who are non-binary and who don't identify as male or female. So there's ways to reach a lot of people in that capacity as well. In the United States alone, there are 190 million users on LinkedIn. That's a lot of people. And about 45% of the users are in upper management. So these are people of influence that can make decisions that could impact your organization. I said before that the average LinkedIn user, almost 70% make over $50,000 a year individually. 55% of people on LinkedIn identify as having a high monthly household income. So that means that there's money available for them to be able to donate to your organizations too. You have also 380 million donors, and this is a worldwide statistic, so that doesn't add up to 190, but about 380 million people are donors, and 225 million people consider themselves volunteers worldwide on LinkedIn. So these are people who have self-identified. And then there's some other research done by LinkedIn that shows that users are 56% more likely than the average internet user to donate to charities. So these are statistics that are good to know if you're trying to build up your online presence and your online giving, because there's a lot of people who are there for you. So what else do we know before we talk about why you should be on here? LinkedIn has some really great information as well about its users. And so 55% of decision makers use thought leadership when determining who to work with. And of those people, about 20% of them say that LinkedIn is one of the best platforms to learn about topics that are important to them. What that essentially says that not only does the platform reach these decision makers, but it's also trusted because people will go to LinkedIn more than other social platforms to get information that they need, because they feel that the companies and the organizations that are posting on LinkedIn are ones that they can trust and use that information. You don't see that often on a lot of other platforms. And then, once people are on LinkedIn, they're there for a little bit. Unlike Facebook, where Facebook users are maybe on the platform, 8 or 10 different times during the day. It could be for a quick scroll or two, but every time someone goes on to LinkedIn, they're on there for about eight minutes or so. And that's actually a pretty long time in terms of social interaction. So when people are there, they're there to look for information. They're there to see what their connections are doing, and also to do a lot of searching as well. But I do think that, it's kind of time to flip the script on LinkedIn. So I think traditionally a lot of people have looked at LinkedIn as a platform for job hunting or a platform for hiring. And while LinkedIn, I think, really started out as that type of platform, it really has evolved into a very different platform, one that we actually use quite often here at .org. And we actually really like LinkedIn because we're able to connect with people and professionals in our field that have very similar interests as us and as motivations as us as well. So when you're actually looking at LinkedIn from your messaging, try to always think of what is it that they're coming for. They may not be looking at what you're posting because they're looking for a job, or maybe they are looking at you for a job. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So now that we know that, there's people that we want that are going to connect, or that, are on LinkedIn, a lot of these people might be people that are really great opportunities to support, have a really great opportunity to support our organizations or become involved in some way. What do we do next, and how can we leverage it from the nonprofit standpoint? So obviously we talked that hiring is something that can be done through LinkedIn. And I'm going to go through each one of these in a little bit more in depth. You can use it for board and volunteer recruitment, because think of how people reach out to you actually on LinkedIn to connect with you. You can do the same particular thing when you're trying to recruit board and volunteers. You can use it to generate corporate support and involvement. You can use it as a stewardship vehicle and show donor impact stories, especially if those donors are active on LinkedIn, or they're involved with a specific company and things like that. You can share thought leadership and expertise. And I think this goes back to that statistic about 50-some% of people who are actually looking for, they're looking actually for thought leadership, and they trust LinkedIn to be the place. As nonprofits, you have a lot of thought leadership in areas, and you can talk about things. You can highlight your programs or organizational information, and then you can also recognize a lot of milestones. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into each of these topics. So hiring, if you have done any hiring or on LinkedIn, you're probably familiar with a lot of these tools. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on this, but I think I just want to share some things. There's a couple different ways you can do job postings if this is something that's important to you. Those are both organic and paid, and those actually go through the job postings tab. That's a pretty straightforward thing that you can do. Both have their benefits, and so obviously not having to pay for a job posting is great, but actually posting your job and paying for it is going to get you in front of different people. It's an economical way to do it because you can actually set the budget of what you want to spend on any given day. And if you have a short or like a smaller geography of which you want to pull people from, you can do that very quickly and very inexpensively. You can use paid advertising, which is actually different than the paid job postings. So that is actually more or less those sponsored posts or those promoted posts that you actually see when you're scrolling through your LinkedIn feed. If you want to do that, that sometimes is really good if you have, it's actually in your talent, or actually it's in your LinkedIn advertising page. And because of time, I'm not going to be able to go into that deeply at all today. But if that's something you're interested in, please reach out and we can talk more about that further. But when you're actually doing LinkedIn advertising, a lot of people feel as it's very expensive, and it can be expensive. But you can also do it in a way that really makes a lot of sense. So if you're looking to do a lot of full-scale hiring, if you have a lot of jobs that you need to fill at your organization, depending on your size, this is a really great way to do it because you can target that those roles essentially by people that are in those particular fields. So getting in front of those people in the right way at the right time can really boost your efforts that way. You could also actively recruit people through search. So let's say you have a specific job that you want to hire for. You can look for people with similar titles and you can actually reach out to them. A lot of people aren't actively looking for jobs, but they actually might be receptive to your call or be interested in just talking with you about another opportunity. And then two other ways I think in hiring that people don't necessarily think about is when you have people who are looking for jobs, especially looking for jobs with your organization, they're doing their research more and more. And so they're looking at places like your Facebook page, they're looking at your LinkedIn company pages, because they want to know if I'm going to leave a job that I may like, but I'm looking for a new opportunity, I want to know that the place that I'm considering going to is a great place to work. And so showing your company's personality on and culture on posts is just a really great way for people who are interested in coming to work for you to see who you are and if they think they're going to be a fit. One of the things that we have tried a lot more in the last couple of months, especially now that we're kind of getting out of COVID and we're able to be out more and do more things as a team, we find that we try to post a couple like a little bit more personal and team kind of things within our organization on a regular basis. And when we do that, we get a lot of traction because people like to be able to associate companies as having like a human side to them as well, not in the case of a nonprofit, not just a mission, because the mission oftentimes shows what you do and for who you do it. But actually showing your culture of the people who actually are inside doing that work is just as important as well. We'll talk a little bit about that more under content. So another way that you can use LinkedIn is for your board and volunteer recruitment. And so companies are more and more looking for ways for their organizations to be involved. And I'll talk about corporate in a little bit. When I'm referring to board and volunteer recruitment, I'm really looking for maybe specific individuals or people who aren't coming to you as a team. I think right now, a lot of people are feeling a little bit more open to coming in person and doing things. They're also maybe thinking, gosh, I'm really interested in serving on a board, and this is something that is of interest to me. And, but I don't know where to look, or I don't know what I'm interested in. Or maybe you're saying, gosh, we really could use somebody with experience in human resources. And, our current board just may not have some good candidates, or maybe we've sought some candidates and we're just not, either they're not interested or they're just not a good fit for us. You can actually go out and search for professionals in those particular areas and ask them if they might be willing to be involved with your organization. I also think too, you can share things about your board. So I think a lot of times, kind of like staff, when somebody's considering being a board member with your organization, they're trying to decide, am I going to be a good fit for this board? So, being able to share board and volunteer testimonials, whether that is, hey, I'm really excited to be a part of, XYZ board. And in my case, I'm on the board of Junior Achievement. I'm very excited about what they do. And when I feel it's appropriate, I share what they have to share, and I'm happy to give my testimonials to them. Post calls. I mean, you can always, even this is one of those things where I think if you're looking for a specific, maybe a team of volunteers, or maybe you're looking for individual volunteers for perfect things or particular things, I think it's perfectly acceptable to post those things on your LinkedIn page. But the important part is you actually have to be able to make that a little more viral. And we'll talk about how to do that and building your audience here in a little bit. And also show photos of current board members or companies or volunteers, people volunteering, people that are happy, people that are doing the work that you want to showcase. I find that, LinkedIn is very much that way in terms of the content, is liking to see the people in action and people doing an activity. Highlight those special volunteer needs when important. So maybe you only have a need once a year or a couple times a year, or maybe you have an emergent need. It's a great thing to post on LinkedIn as well. And then show your connection to the corporate community. LinkedIn, is connections through people where they work. And so anytime you can create that connection to the corporate community, that will serve you well. All right, so next thing I'm going to talk about is corporate support and involvement. And so there's some great ways to get corporations involved, and corporations now are actually looking as part of their company culture, especially with teams coming back in the hybrid environment in many cases. How do we get these people together? What are some ways that we can engage our teams, especially if they're remote part of the time, and we want to bring them together and have some additional camaraderie. So you can certainly look for companies to volunteer as groups. You can also research decision makers for corporate giving. We actually did a webinar early on in the pandemic, so it's a little bit dated in terms of the content about the virtual event part, but we actually had a virtual event webinar in July of 2020 that talked about getting the most out of your corporate donors and how you can recognize them. There was some really great information from one of our speakers on that webinar. If you want to go to our YouTube channel, you can look for that. But she talked about how maybe you want to get involved with a certain company, but you don't actually know how to get in touch with that company. You can do that research through LinkedIn. So maybe in the case of one of her clients, they wanted to get involved with Coca-Cola. And so they actually researched, local Coca-Cola executives, and this was out in another state. But what they found is they found somebody on their board was a first line connection with that person from Coca-Cola. So you can start to see those connections of people too, where you may not have a direct connection to that person, but maybe you have a secondary connection or a tertiary connection where you can go in through the contacts that you know to make contact with that person. You can also research companies for giving information. So a lot of them will put their giving and their involvement on their pages. So just like you as a nonprofit would be showcasing what your employees do, these companies showcase what their employees do. So you can kind of get an idea of what might be important to them, so that if you're trying to engage them, you can go to them with the right ask at the right time. And then it's also a great way to recognize your corporate sponsors and your donors. You could do a lot with hashtags. You can do a lot with other tags where you can, put specific people into things. You can put corporations into your posts. It's a great additional thing that you can use if you are doing, let's say, corporate sponsors for events. You can tag those folks, and you can, put pictures of them on your LinkedIn page and share them. That will usually get a lot of traction from both your corporate sponsors and those volunteers as well, because they'll want to share that. So you can also use it for stewardship. And I don't think, social media is used quite, I think it's getting better, but I think we can use social media a lot more for stewardship than we currently do. LinkedIn is still a great place, like other social platforms, to tell donor stories and show the impact of your work. The important part of that, though, is you have to make sure that as you are showing that impact of your work, that you're doing it in a way that kind of tilts and has a little bit more of a corporate slant to it. The storytelling that you're telling needs to be more about the benefit to the community and how it makes a better place, where sometimes you can have a little bit more fuzziness with some other things that you're telling. So make sure you're having that a little bit of a corporate slant to it if you're telling those stories. And then also, LinkedIn is really great for photos. It's really great for videos, really great for infographics. And I think the thing, though, you have to be careful with is if you look at LinkedIn and you look at it compared to other platforms, generally the video that you see, generally the graphics that you see, generally the photography that you see is very high quality. And so you can get away with maybe a little, more amateur video or some amateur photography in some instances on, Facebook and some others, but LinkedIn, try to get as high quality of, photography and video as you can. And again, I can't say this enough, just make sure you're tagging individuals and companies that are involved. You never know when you have someone on LinkedIn who has a very large number of followers, or a company who is very, has a social media manager that just really is on top of all this stuff. You can just really get a lot of recognition by tagging both individuals and companies, and they can pass that information along. So this is one area that I don't think a lot of nonprofits take advantage of. And I know it's hard because, a lot of you have limited resources, you have limited staff, and you're already being pulled in so many different directions. But because of the way people use LinkedIn, they are looking for thought leaders. They're looking for information that they're not getting from their other social platforms. So when people are on LinkedIn, they're typically there during the day, they're there during work hours, and they may be looking for a connection or information or something that they just don't have and can't find anywhere else. So, look for opportunities to share blogs, or maybe key insights from your leaders. Maybe your organization is doing really cutting edge work in a particular area, or is aligned with an organization. Maybe you have like a local chapter of a national organization that's doing really meaningful and insightful work, and you have data that you can share. Post that kind of stuff. That stuff really does very well. Also, insight from resources that are relevant to your organization. So maybe it's not something that you do as part of your mission, but your mission helps fulfill some of the needs that have come about because of this data or this information. Or maybe there's something that will help people that your organization serves and that might be relevant. So make sure that you're thinking of, like, when you are going out looking for information to make decisions in your organization, what kind of information can you also share with others to show that you're a thought leader in a lot of different areas? If you have annual reports or other metrics, it's a great place to do it. I mean, you have business people who, if they're considering being involved or looking for impact, they're going to be looking for data. Are you doing what you say you're going to do? Are other people in the community supporting you? Is this the kind of organization that I want to be a part of? And put that information out there, or other metrics that you may have that people, may not be able to get somewhere else. Talk about your new programs or success stories. I think that, anytime you have a new program or an existing program that's really doing great things, or you're seeing a need, people share that information, and they're likely, maybe know someone or are involved in an organization that might be a good partner for your organization. So make sure that you're putting, new programs and success stories out there. So basically, as a nonprofit, you exist for a reason, and it's for your mission and because you're very knowledgeable about particular things. And so use that expertise to educate others. And again, show your impact in the communities that you serve, and try to connect with people in those communities as much as possible. So the next thing you can do with LinkedIn is you can actually recognize milestones. And I think this is such a great thing because these get a lot of traction. And unlike Facebook, where you get a lot of likes, you get a lot of shares, things go viral, LinkedIn doesn't work as much the same way, even though there's a lot of the like, share buttons. A lot of times people will read through stuff and they scroll on by, but things like milestones or those personal things that people want to see tend to get a lot of traction. So, are there key anniversaries or founding dates for your organization, or leaders, or people, volunteers? Are people retiring that have been with your organization a long time, whether it's a staff member or a volunteer? Blow your own horn on any community awards and accomplishments that you get. Whether you receive a grant from a grantor, talk about that grant, talk about that grantor, and talk about what it's going to do. You can definitely tag the grantor as well. I've seen a lot more grantors being very, very active on LinkedIn, and this is certainly something that you can do as a payback to thank them, but also show how funders are paying attention to what you're doing and supporting what you're doing. So that success will hopefully generate more success for people who come to your page. Your new board member additions, highlight every single new board member that comes on, put their picture on LinkedIn, tag them, talk about their company, tag their company. That's a great way to show that you're really excited that they're there, and it's good for them as well. Also, board member retirements, and then even any key new employees that are added. I'm not saying you need to put every single new employee on your LinkedIn page, but maybe you get a key leader of your leadership team or management team, or a new program person, or maybe you do want to put everybody on that you hire, depending on the organization that you're in. But having those milestones recognized is, again, a way to get traction. And I think that's a question that we get from people as well, is how do you get more traction on LinkedIn? And the best way to get traction is not just be active, but having your people be active as well and involved in what you're doing. So now that we know all of this really great stuff we can do on LinkedIn, what actually do you do next, and where do you start? So if you haven't already, and I noticed that in our poll that quite a few of you already have a company page. So if you don't, the first thing you want to do is create your company page and make sure that you're highlighting your brand. I always recommend naming a few key people as admins and editors of the page, because what happens is if somebody leaves your organization, they're also going to take that admin role with them. So it's always good to have one or two admins within your organization. I would highly recommend not having volunteers. I would recommend having people within your organization that are the ones that are a part of this, because it's tied to a person's personal profile. And editors also are people who just don't have full administrative access. Create a strong header graphic. It's going to be kind of like a mini web page for you, even though people don't often go directly to your particular company page. They'll be seeing your feed in their feed. That's important. Create a public URL that's easy to remember. So you can actually choose what your ending URL is on your LinkedIn feed. So, make it something that's relatively easy to remember and put it on your different publications. So, whether it's at the end of your e-newsletter or if you print things, make sure your LinkedIn address is on there as well, so people can find you and follow you. Fill out all the required form questions, write a strong description, and definitely select your industry. So, there's some just basic stuff that you can set up. So at the very least, I would do those things. You can also then create showcase pages. And I don't know how many people know about showcase pages, but this is, I think, I want to say it's a somewhat new thing to LinkedIn. I have not seen them very much, but showcase pages, this is an optional thing, but these are actually what I would call sub pages, or if you're familiar with web development lingo, these would be like almost a subdomain, I would say. These are pages that are affiliated with your page. They are very similar to your company page, but they allow you to reach different customer segments. So let's say you are an organization that has, I'm going to take the Y, for instance. I think I saw someone on this webinar from the Y. The Y has its programs for childcare, but it also has its fitness programs that may target adults. The Y may choose to have a showcase page that features its childcare and child age programs. And then it may want to have a separate showcase page to highlight its separate fitness programs. So, these are again, like separate sites almost, if you will, very easy to set up. They are affiliated with your main company page. The downside is the followers don't carry over. So if you, let's say, have 1,000 followers or people who, are engaged with your page on LinkedIn, your company page, those people don't automatically become followers of your over showcase pages. So you're going to actually have to go in and build audiences for that. But it does allow you, if you are, trying to be more segmented to particular populations, this is a really great way to do it, and also have access to those folks within LinkedIn. So after you've created your page, you actually need to create your content strategy. And this is where it does get a little complex, because we always say that your content strategy for your other social media is not always going to flow over well into LinkedIn. So it's different than the other platforms. And so you need to develop that content accordingly. So we would say, if you're just getting started on LinkedIn, or maybe your company page isn't super active, try to post just once a week. A LinkedIn page is not quite as the same as maybe like TikTok or Instagram or some of the others, where in Facebook, where you need to post a lot because people are on the platform so much. So if you can post 1 or 2 good posts a week, you're going to be in good shape. Make sure you have an ongoing calendar of posts that you want to have and you're going to have. So you may decide as an organization that, in our case, we decide that we're going to pick as many holidays that we can. We do graphics for those specific holidays. We have key things like National Dog Day that we know, because we have a lot of dog lovers. We also one time decided to post on National Ice Cream Day. And so we picked different things throughout the year that we know that are going to be on that content calendar. So have some planned posts that you want to have, because that way you're going to have content. Also, though, know what is it that you really want to accomplish with your page. So, you can have all these graphics and, you're recognizing the holidays and you're recognizing special milestone days and things like that. But those are really kind of nice filler content to show that you're paying attention to the world around you. Really think clearly about what you're trying to accomplish with your page. And it may be one of 2 things. It may be one of 3 things. It may be, gosh, we really want to highlight our corporate partners because we have a ton of corporate partners that we're involved with. Maybe we, really want to showcase that our organization is a fabulous place to work, and we want to make sure that we have as many opportunities to show our employees in action and doing great things. Think though about, what is it that you want to accomplish with that page as well. I always say leave room for organic posts too. So yes, you can plan content, and you should plan content, and you should have a regular cadence of when that content comes in, but always leave room open for opportunities. Maybe you're attending a speaker in the community who is, and you see a lot of other, organizations represented there that you may want to say like, wow, what a great speech I heard today. And it was such a great thing that this organization put this on, or I saw so many of my friends from this company, or what a great way to bring people together. And so save room for organic posts because those always perform well too, and are opportunities to tag companies and individuals too. And then understand what works and doesn't work on LinkedIn. That's where your statistics and all of your digital data comes in, where you can say like, oh, wow, we have no interaction on these kinds of posts whatsoever. And that may take a little bit of time. Also too, I just tell people, scroll through your own feed. Take a look at what's working for other people or other organizations and say like, wow, every time I see a post that looks like X, nobody ever comments or shares on it. So maybe you just don't do those kind of posts anymore. So make sure everyone understands, what works and doesn't work on LinkedIn. Again, I think the best way to do that is to just spend a little time scrolling through, your own feed and seeing what's there. So what kind of content does work well? I've mentioned this a couple of different times. It is different than Facebook. So you need to align it with your communication goals first. But I've mentioned a couple of times too, any content where you can tag individuals or organizations, corporations is going to work very, very well. Employee-centered content. Show your people doing fun things or show them doing meaningful things. Those work great. Relevant information. So I mentioned, statistics, any insight that you have into current events or things that your organization has expertise on. These things are going to perform very, very well. Video and infographics. So you'll see a lot of video, a lot of infographics on LinkedIn. Those perform very, very well because a lot of times, because you have business people on there, they're looking for things that are verifying maybe something they're interested in, or they're really looking for a video on something, or they'll spend a little bit of time looking at a video, maybe even a little bit more of a long form video. You can get away with some longer form videos on LinkedIn as well. Inspirational, I always see like quotes from people, or I was scrolling through my LinkedIn feed today and I saw somebody had a Post-it note and it said, "I love you." And I didn't really read the post, but I saw this Post-it note and it was just there, and it was something like, oh, it's meant to be inspiring, or, a quote for a particular kind of day. Those work well too. I would just make sure that it's relevant to what you are doing if you're using it for your corporate page, because what you can get away with your company organization page is going to be a lot different than what you're going to be able to do with an individual page. Always professional and educational. That content works great. That's what people are looking for. That's the stuff people search for. So it does often show up in search. And the more people interact with the content that you put, the more it will stay alive in people's feeds. And so that'll get more traction for you. Any content that you find has worked that people have shared. I know that sounds a little amorphous, but you can look and see like, okay, a lot of people have shared this type of content. Maybe I should do more of that. And so shared content works well. So again, as you're scrolling through your feed, maybe look at people, what they've, and organizations of what they have put out there, and said, hey, maybe I should try to do some of this because I see there's a lot of traction here. And then high quality, as I alluded to before, when you look at LinkedIn, you'll see a lot more high quality graphics. You'll see a lot more of a corporate look to those graphics, a lot more, high quality video. And so anything that you can do to make sure that you're accomplishing that is going to serve you very, very well. And then, the next thing is building your audience. So this is a tough one because organizational pages, people aren't looking often to say like, oh, hey, I think I'm going to go find an organizational page, and how can we grow that particular audience? One of the best ways, though, is to get your employees to connect with your page. That should be pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and they can do that very easily. So have your employees connect with your page. That'll add however many employees you can get right away. Invite all your board members and other LinkedIn contacts to follow your page. So the page can actually invite people, but you as an individual can invite people to like a page. So, you know, I actually, every couple of months, I go through my LinkedIn connections and I invite a few more people to like my page or like our page at .org. And so we've grown our audience that way as well. Post content, you know, that's relevant to the LinkedIn audience, that'll automatically get people, you know, to start thinking, oh, I might be, you know, really interested in this. And have key employees share relevant content. So obviously, depending on your organization and, you know, the number of employees you have and whether they're on LinkedIn or not is going to determine who can share this. But, you know, the more your key employees share your LinkedIn content, the more viral it's going to go, and it's going to help you build your audience. And then the last one, which I actually forgot, I did not put on here, that I actually find really interesting, is every time we post a job, we automatically get a bunch of new followers. So what is happening is those people who are looking to come and work for us are following us to find out, again, are we going to be that culture fit that they're looking for? So, you know, as soon as you post a job on LinkedIn, depending on what that job is, you're likely going to see a bump in your followers, that people are going to start to follow what you're saying, what you're doing, before they, you know, determine if you're going to be that fit for them. And then the last thing I want to talk about is, you know, how do you do some of this is, you know, consider LinkedIn ads. And I think that, again, a lot of people shy away from LinkedIn ads, which is outside of the job paid posting. LinkedIn ads, yes, can be expensive, but there are really some great times that you can use these ads to your advantage. It's an investment, but usually when you are using LinkedIn to promote something that you want to promote, that investment, if you're doing the campaign right, really has a great opportunity to pay off, because you are getting in front of exactly the right audience that you want to get in front. So, you know, I would suggest, and we've done campaigns for clients for this, is promoting large scale hiring needs. So if there's a large scale hiring need that actually fits within within what you're trying to do and the people that are on LinkedIn, there's some really cool ways that you can do that on there to get people to maybe come to a large scale job fair or something that you're trying to do with them. Also, you can promote specific campaigns relevant to companies or audiences on LinkedIn. So for instance, if you have a program or a service, and I'm going to pick on the why again. So maybe you're trying to promote corporate wellness, and you're trying to do corporate memberships or something. You might think, gosh, maybe we have a good opportunity here with LinkedIn to be able to grow our membership base in particular areas by offering corporate rates and corporate memberships. And maybe that's something that we decide to do in the first quarter of the year. Also, too, you can also try to think of an opportunity where you want to target a specific business sector. Maybe you have a conference that you put on every year, and maybe that conference has a very, very niche or type of person that attends it, and you want to make sure that you get to those people. That may be a really good time to put some money into a sponsored post, because hopefully that conference registration will balance out actually what you're paying to get the people in the door. So there are a lot of opportunities for LinkedIn ads. I think most importantly, like any digital paid ad, you can set your budget of what you have to spend, whether it's a daily budget, a lifetime budget. There are ways you can do that. Just sometimes your budget of what you have could be impacted by obviously the size of geography that you're trying to target, or the number of people you're trying to target, or the frequency in which that sponsored post may hit people's feed. So you know, you can do some of these for a little bit less money, but you have to take a lot of factors in consideration as you're planning that digital campaign. So we have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to recap what we talked about today, and then I would love to open this up for questions. So first, you know, many of your key audiences are on and they're active on LinkedIn. So even though you may not be active on LinkedIn, the people that you want to connect with and get involved with your organization are. There are many ways that you can leverage your LinkedIn presence, and you know, we talked about those, whether it's for hiring or stewardship or volunteer recruitment or a myriad of other things. A lot of ways you can leverage your presence. Always remember, though, it's different than the other social platforms. So you need to appeal to people in their work life. You know, this isn't, you know, cute dog videos. It's not political stuff. I honestly, I don't know, for those of you who are on LinkedIn regularly, I find that people on LinkedIn have a tendency to self-monitor. And if somebody is pushing the boundaries of what LinkedIn regular users find to be appropriate, they will call them out. And so you don't see a lot of that on LinkedIn. So make sure that, you know, you appeal to people's work life. You have to have high quality content, because if you don't, people will see right through it and then they'll, you know, turn them off. Got to have a separate content strategy for LinkedIn. So, you know, there are times, and we do it too, that the same posts go out to the same things, but you've got to get, you know, really understanding of what is appropriate for LinkedIn. Maybe that's a little different than what you're doing on your other social platforms. Growth comes from leveraging your networks. So, you know, you can have a great corporate page, but if you're not pushing out that content through your employees and your board members and other key people associated with your organization, you're not going to see the, you know, the growth that you would like to see. So, you know, making sure that you're leveraging those networks, the personal networks, is going to be where you see the growth. And then, you know, LinkedIn ads could be a great opportunity for some people. In the right circumstance, I think they're very effective. We found them to be very effective for some nonprofits we worked with, and we certainly, you know, would encourage those as an option for people. So at this point, I would love to take any questions that you may have. And hopefully you've learned a few things about, you know, how LinkedIn can help your organization and ways to use it a little differently than maybe you have in the past, and really consider it a more viable option. I think, you know, it has evolved a lot more as a platform. I think some people have gotten a little overwhelmed and maybe tired of, you know, some of the non-business content or the non-appropriate content on some other platforms, and they're using LinkedIn a lot more. So, you know, there's really great opportunities there to connect with people as well. So as you guys are maybe thinking of questions, I'm going to just talk about our next webinar. So next month, we're going to be talking about getting started with Google Ad Grants. So this is an opportunity for not all nonprofits, but many nonprofits to, you know, leverage the potential for free money and free content that Google will give you as part of an ad grants program. So this is something we're excited to talk about, and a great opportunity, but also one that I think has been very confusing for a lot of people, of like, how do we do this? We have all this money that Google may give us every month. What do we do with it? How do we manage it? So we're going to talk about how to get started with Google Ad Grants next month. Any questions? What a quiet group today. Oh, I see a hand raised. Could you please put your question? Oh, I think that must have been from the beginning. Okay. All right, well, everyone, thank you again for attending. My name is Amy Wong, and I'm the president of .org Solutions. So feel free to email me if you have any questions after the fact. I'd be happy to answer those. You know, sometimes they come later on. And then also, I probably should have put this on here. Go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn. I am easy to find on LinkedIn, and I would love to connect and have new connections with you. So, oh, we have a question just popped up. This is a great question. Have you seen LinkedIn change to be more personal, less professional with all the changes in corporate culture lately? I think what I have found is that I kind of alluding to what I said with people getting fed up with Facebook. I think the conversations on LinkedIn tend to have a little bit more of a personal feel as well. I feel like I interact with people more in feeds now on LinkedIn than I used to. I wouldn't necessarily say it's less professional. I would say it's not as stuffy maybe as it used to be, because I think people did always look at LinkedIn as one of those platforms that it's just for jobs and job seekers. And I think now it's becoming a platform that's a little bit more about information seeking and I guess information seeking and trust. I think trust is a big part of it, because a lot of people have really lost a lot of trust in other social platforms. And so LinkedIn seems to be a little bit safer for a lot of people to participate in. And I also think another reason that people are probably flocking to LinkedIn a little bit more is for those connections that maybe they have lost by not going to a workplace. So as many people are remote, they are spending a lot more time in social platforms. And I think that may fuel a little bit more of that personal feel to LinkedIn, away from a little bit more of that corporate and stuffy. So I hope that answered that question. But that's kind of what I'm seeing. Well, thank you everybody for attending today. For more information on any of our learning opportunities, including our webinars, our blogs, and other content that's available, please go to .orgsolutions.com/learning. And if you're interested in learning more and actually building out your LinkedIn strategy and content strategy, call us. We're here for that particular reason. So we'd love to be able to help you. So for those of you who are in Ohio and having this chilly day, stay warm and have a great rest of the year, and best wishes for success and a successful year end. Thank you.